Well, we continue our interviews with founding families. May I have your name?
Jim Flynn.
And when did you and your family move out to the northeastern part of Franklin County?
We moved up there off of Walnut Street on Jeanette Drive in 1978. It was Feast of the Assumption, August 15th.
What was the attraction moving out this way? Just get further out of the city?
We lived in the city in Columbus, and it was getting kind of congested, and we had a small lot, so I didn't even have a garage or anything, or you had to park the car in front, and just to back the car out to go to work or go to anywhere was getting to be a real problem. So I wanted to come out this way.
And when you moved out here, what parish were you in?
St. Paul.
Okay. Now, did you get a letter that for the Catholics up in New Albany, there was going to be a priest coming up every Sunday from Gahanna St. Matthew?
Yes.
So you were informed about that by letter?
Yes.
Okay. And you met at the public school, correct?
Yes.
Were you, was it classroom or gym or?
There was an elementary school there, one-story elementary that isn't there anymore, and we met in the multi-purpose room, and it was Father Bob Smith that came up from St. Matthew.
Yes.
And what I loved about it was it seemed like from that very first Mass, it was about volunteering.
Okay.
First thing we did was a bunch of us would unstack the stackable chairs against the wall for our service, and Father said, would anybody like to read or do anything else? And some hands went up, and it became a volunteer thing then, and it seems like we have so many volunteers to this day. I'm really proud of.
Now, I had heard there was a ballot issue that fall regard to the school, and it failed, and therefore the Catholic community had to relocate for Sunday Mass. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah, there was something that happened like that.
All right. Now, I also heard related to that the relocation could have been related to anti-Catholic sentiment. Did you hear anything about that?
I heard something about it, but I don't know. I try to be open-minded about it. I don't know if that's really the case or not.
So you relocated to the Lions Club up at Route 605 in Central College Road.
That's right.
All right. So, again, was it just one Mass on the weekend?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Was there any rumor about a new parish starting among all of you?
There was, and there was some excitement, and I don't know how much that was just speculation and how much was true, but, sooner or later it became true.
Was there another letter sent out indicating that a parish would be starting in July of 1983?
I remember a letter coming out.
Yeah,
that
mailed to you?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay.
And a lot of people think, yes, our parish is 40 years old, but we are actually probably 41 years if you want to go back when we gathered before we had a name. We just knew we were a mission without a name.
Correct.
So
a parish doesn't start until a full-time pastor has been announced.
Yeah.
So, and established and everything. So that was July of 1983, and here we are 40 years later. So were you anxious to get involved?
I was. I started doing some readings and greeting, at the beginning of Mass. And but one thing I got to say, I would like to interject anyways, is when we moved out here, I didn't feel that much spirituality where we were going to church because of that.
In Columbus? Or here?
Not here.
Out here.
No.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm
sorry.
I'm trying not to say anything negative and attach a name to it, but I just felt like because of the logistics of and how crowded and big that parish was that we first joined, it was. I felt like they went through the motions to get the Mass over, get out, clear the parking lot so the next folks could come in, and it just didn't feel like the spirituality I was looking for, the friendliness and welcomeness and community I was looking for. I began praying. When I'm driving around, I would pray about could we get a parish out here somewhere, and we were bound and determined when it happened. You can see now, people gather, and after Mass they stick around, either out here in the gathering space or just slowly coming out of church after Mass, and everybody, it's almost like a family reunion.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. So you were thrilled that a parish was announced and starting, and you were you pleased to be a founding member?
I was.
Were you anxious to get involved?
Uh-huh.
Were you willing to sacrifice financially for the construction of the first worship space?
I was. I mean, I think we all have to do that. If it's something we want, I think we all have to chip in and expect that.
Okay.
I mean, buildings don't come free.
Correct. Were your wife and kids actively involved with the parish too?
They were at first. You know how kids can be, and my kids were young. My daughter was not even a year old yet when the parish started, and my son was just turned 7. And kids, like, come on, it's time to go to Mass, all this. But and sometimes my wife would come, and sometimes she didn't. She was raised Methodist.
Okay.
When we got married, she decided that while I was away in basic training in the National Guard, she went through what we call RCIA now. It wasn't as elaborate back then. So that was in 1972.
Okay.
So she went through that with Father McEwen. He did it face to face with her. She came out to the rectory and they sat there and went through everything.
Sure. And in response to where we are today versus the way we were 40 years ago.
Well, I've seen a lot of changes. When we moved into what is now the ministry center, I remember I was fortunate enough to get to be a lector at one of those masses. Then we had 2. We actually went to 3 masses. And I remember just standing up there, how you greet people at the beginning, welcome to our parish community, Church of the Resurrection, my name's so-and-so, and then you go into it. And I was able to say, look at this, we're fortunate to have this beautiful place. And to us, that was the Taj Mahal.
Sure.
After, it got pretty tight there in the Lions Club.
Yes.
So after we built this, it's like, wow, because it didn't take long at all before we were overcrowded at the ministry center, too.
Yes.
So anyways, I think the thing I like most is obviously the bigger a parish gets, the harder it is to hang on to that personal side of it, where everybody feels like getting to know each other and everything. And I would encourage people to reach out and try to meet somebody. When I came here by myself, I would purposely sit at a different place and try to, like if I see a single seat somewhere, I would sit there and see if I could just kind of talk to that person. And I still see us doing that today. I like that part of it. Good. And I hope we have it forever. And I hope we are diversified. I like to see more, should I say, non-white. So any kind of other race. I mean, obviously I'm white, so I like that. But I mean, I want everybody to come in here and feel welcome.
Yes. And
I don't want somebody to feel different and think they have to go sit in a corner somewhere. I want them to join in with everybody.
Oh, great. So today is July 26th, the last Saturday. July 22nd, we had the 40th anniversary Mass with Bishop Fernandez. As we were getting ready to recess out at the end of Mass, I was not singing, but at one point I just put my head up and I was just looking around at the ceiling of the church and reflecting how we started 40 years ago and what we have today. And my first arrival here was in December of 1988, but I was present for the dedication Mass at the Ministry Center, which was July of 1985, and I was present for a reconciliation service in the Lions Club, either Advent or Lent of 1984. So, yeah.
I've forgotten the year that we built what's now our ministry center.
Yeah.
Do you remember what year that was?
I think groundbreaking was the fall of 1984. Dedication was July of 1985.
Okay.
So, I think it took a year to get the parish somewhat established, and what do we want to build, and design, and then the challenge to get the dollars pledged to turn dirt and put up a facility. So
I wonder how many people that are newer parishioners realize there was such a celebration of marching from the one church to this church, singing All Are Welcome, and carrying the cross. Bill Peterson made it. And we had all put letters inside, like a time capsule. And it's buried underneath where the altar is now.
That was in July of 03 when we did that. So
okay.
Because it was right after I had returned, because I came early in July of 03. I remember getting a phone call about what they wanted to do, and I said, well, maybe get somebody to build a three-dimensional cross like you see in a communion call set, and then have people write down on slips of paper a prayer intention. And I remember seeing Bill Peterson with a drill screwing the top in, and then I think we carried it over, and there's a picture of the cross being placed in the ground, which is now buried in concrete and tile, is right at the base of the steps to the sanctuary.
Yes, that's another nice memory. I'm thinking if this building had its own brain with its own memory, the stories that it would be able to tell today, and in another 40 years from now, the stories it would be able to tell. I mean, the things that you see, the emotions and all the different people, the prayers, the spirituality, the happiness, the sadness, all of that.
Yes. So, and you've experienced that. So, quick story. I know your wife is deceased, but she was a policewoman for New Albany Police.
Yes.
All right. And when I first arrived here, I had a red Camaro. And I would drive back and forth from the rectory over to the office, as the two were 2.5 miles apart. And in conversation with your wife at one point, she said, oh yeah, the police know who you are. And I was surprised, and she said, yeah, they see you driving back and forth. And I made sure I didn't go more than 27 miles an hour between my residence and my office.
And maybe I should add that when you no longer had your Camaro, you gave me your sign that you used that says Camaro parking only.
Yes.
Because I had a red Camaro by then. And so it's still hanging in my garage. I sold that Camaro about a year ago. I had it for 12 years.
Wow, okay.
And so, I mean, it was hard to do, but, I sold it, but that sign still hangs there right now.
Oh, good. And I bought that at the World Trade Center in 1988.
Wow.
Yes, so.
Thank you for that gift, by the way.
You're welcome. Thank you for holding on to it.
Sure.
So.
If you want it back, I'll give it to you.
No, thank you. I've graduated to Equinoxes. They're easier to get in and out of.
Somehow that doesn't have the same roll off the tongue. Equinox parking only, but
I got tired of crunching my body. Old age. So
that was the hardest part about it. You look where you park because that door was so long. You need a lot of room to swing the door out to get in and out of that car. So
I had 3 red Camaros and 1 silver one over my years of ordination. So I loved them. But, so
it was nice all these years knowing you too. That I feel like you're a friend. Yes,
well,
you're
you.
a priest.
Likewise.
But I mean, having a priest that's also a friend is pretty special.
Thank you. Ditto.